Okay, this is the real world, honest review of a Taurus 1911 pistol. I've had about 2 years of actual use with this gun. Unlike some of these people on YouTube that for some unknown reason think after they own the gun for 4 hours they're automatically an expert about everything. First off, if you're going to get a 1911 with Taurus and you want to get a side X super holster for it, it's not going to fit. What ends up happening is you have to go inside the holster itself with sandpaper and sand the top strap area in the holster and the rail in order for it to fit. It's a little different specs than other 1911s. I found parts about this that are kind of unique to Taurus. I'll cover them as I get to them. Alright. The first things I did when I bought this pistol was I put on these grips. This 1911s just stock with this panel grips. Make the gun a little too small for my mitts. So after I bought the grips, I also bought this Wilson Combat magwell to make it a little easier to get the magazines in and out of the gun. And this hammer, this is a warp speed hammer set, and the reason I had to buy that was after I got the gun originally, there was a lot of play side to side on the hammer mechanism here. It actually had about 20 thousandths of clearance between the frame and the hammer, which gave it a lot of slop, and actually the hammer sat cockeyed in the cutout for it. It's definitely empty, don't worry about that. But as this warp speed hammer set, one thing you really have to watch out for is the hammer spring to give with it is not reliable. You get a couple rounds, it goes downhill from there. I mean, it might fire once, then you have to work the slide, pull the trigger again, keep working it, and eventually you might get it to fire again. I mean, it's horrible. So my suggestion is to go ahead and get a Wolf 20-pound one or 20-pound hammer spring, and it'll be 100% reliable after that. Alright, after about 6 months of owning this gun and shooting it, I noticed that, you know, where my thumb had to hit to release the magazine, I kind of had to shift my grip to hit the button reliably on it. And I wasn't too wild about that, so I've got this Wilson Combat extended magazine release, which puts it a little bit further back and you don't have to change your grip to hit it. At the same time, I also picked up this extended slide release, so I wouldn't as well have to change my grip to hit it. Because before it was up there even with that cutout, and I had to change my grip just a little bit to actually hit it. Now I don't. Another thing that was kind of annoying was this little magazine screw right here, the magazine release screw. It actually is cut kind of proprietary to Taurus. Just a aftermarket screw will not work. It's the little keyway built onto the screw is you have to modify it to fit a Taurus frame, and it's a pain. Next thing I had to change, which also came about 6 or 8 months into owning this gun, was I couldn't get it to grip for crap. I mean, it was a horrible shooting gun, accuracy wise. Reliability wise, 100%. Actually, you got a 6-inch group at 25 yards, you were lucky. And it ended up being the fit between the bushing and the slide, and the bushing in the barrel was so loose that the barrel could just go all over. I mean, it just rocked around. It wasn't set in any way. So I tried a Wilson Combat barrel bushing that actually was, I fit to the barrel itself, but it was still loose on the slide. But it dropped my groups down to a pretty respectable, about 2 inches at 25 yards. But it still wasn't quite right. So about 2 months ago, which is about 18 months into owning this thing, I decided to start trying out different compensator designs. I turned down the lathe for this pistol. There is absolutely zero play in the barrel to bushing and the bushing to barrel, bushing to slide. There's nothing there. I mean, it's as tight as I can get it, still remain 100% reliable. So right now the groups are under an inch at 25 yards. Good groups 3/4 inch, bad groups about 1 inch. And it's pretty good. The sights not being height adjustable are pretty damn annoying, and you can't buy height adjustable sights for it because they're proprietary cuts for only Taurus. To be quite honest, this gun as a production gun, it actually is pretty nice. It's pretty well built. Kimbers and all others, but you have to modify them to be as good as Kimber. But starting price on a really good 1911s about $1,500. Starting price one of these Tauruses is about $550, and you can modify them and build them to be just as good as the expensive brands, and you'll still be under $1,000. I mean, this one, so far, a total investment into it, gun and everything, is actually slightly over $1,000. So it's a $200 hammer set, and all the Wilson Combat parts are another couple $100. But as for shooting, you can't tell the difference between this pistol and a Kimber. Some things I'm going to change in the future are going to be modifying and removing this little spur, because let's be honest, that thing's like a freaking spike in your side when you bend down if you're carrying it, and it hurts. I mean, other 1911s are a little thicker here, a little more rounded, and they can kind of dig in. It's not painful. This one, it feels like a spear, a knife just jabbing you in the side. Another thing I'm going to be changing soon will be a few more different ideas on this compensator. I've tried to get, I got right now where no matter how hot a load I get, it has no real rise when I'm firing it, but it still has a little side-to-side twist. It's pretty rough because as a test piece, why polish it? If I'm just testing, I'll have to remove more material, and when I finally get all the bugs worked out, it'll be removed, rebuilt, and this piece right here will probably go in the scrap. So as a test piece though, working rather well, and total investment in that part right there, steel, time, everything, I think I'm into it about $3. As of all this isn't dirt. This is just it's graphite grease. I suggest that anyone who has a 1911 or any semi-auto pistol actually use this on their gun. It makes the slide feel just butter smooth on the action. I mean, it has zero drag. It works really quite well. I'm going to show you how well the Wilson Combat, which is much tighter than the factory Taurus barrel bushing. How it fits on here, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see it, is all that movement between the slide and the bushing. The fit between the barrel and the bushing is absolutely perfect, but there's quite a bit between that. It was a lot worse when I was using the Taurus barrel bushing. So if you're getting a Taurus, I suggest you just take that barrel bushing and just shit can it. And as for production, the Wilson Combat is quite good. I mean, it does the trick, but it just doesn't quite get it as tight a grouping gun, you know, as it should be. But it gets it real close, and I mean, it's not Wilson Combat's job to make it a perfect fit for a Taurus, because it would not fit a Colt or a Kimber or a Les Bear or any other manufacturer. I mean, Taurus is a little proprietary on the size of the slide. So another thing is firing pins. If you're wanting to make the quickest lock time pistol out of yours, warp speed hammer sets get you pretty quick. Extended spurs even make it a little faster. You can get lightweight mainspring caps, which, be quite honest, doesn't do a damn thing. Just is kind of a waste of money. It really, they'd have to lighten them up a lot more for it to make any kind of difference on that piece right there, because the movement is so small that it doesn't matter what it is. So you can just keep the factory part. And as for the firing pins, there's only so light you can get from a factory production piece. There's titanium out there, but they're quite expensive. Stainless steel, they lighten them up slightly with these tiny little grooves. Or if you really have a lot of time and you know what you're doing, you can build your own firing pins. You have to take your time, make sure everything's within spec. But the taper from the little built-in little stop area right here on the firing pin to where the spring sets, it's tapered through there, and you can actually remove some of that material and make it more of a, you know, single size shaft. From here to here, it's the same dimensions. And this area right here is also solid on factory firing pins. Since it's a race gun that I was trying to work up, you know, for a little fast lock time. It's not a duty gun, so I actually ended up lightning through here, cut out the area right in this area, or cut out the material right in this area to lighten a little more. It's actually the same dimension as where the firing pin hits, and the same dimension as the main body right here of the firing pin. So structurally you are not losing anything other than weight. This little this rounded groove here is actually just for Series 80, your Series 80 safety. It's definitely required. It has to be there. Can't change it, otherwise you'll mess with the reliability of the gun, and that's all kinds of bad. This area right through here actually is solid as well, but I grooved down through it to lighten up a little bit more to get just a smidge more weight. Right through here is not what guides the firing pin down the bore. That's these two lugs right here. So you can turn these just a slight bit more, and as long as this has a good reliable stopping surface for coming back against the and then it's okay. It started out as a 304 stainless steel rod that I turned to these dimensions. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. And if you know what you're doing, just take your time, because if you do a little bit wrong, the gun will have issues firing. If you don't heat treat it quite right, the firing pin will become brittle and break, or if you don't get it hard enough, it will mushroom. And if you mushroom this material right here, this firing pin will not come out, because you will not be able to push it back to get that firing pin stop removed. You'll actually have to grind off the firing pin the way it sets in the gun, and you risk damaging the slide. So, in other words, don't do it unless you know what you're doing. Alright, another quick word. I know this is covering a lot of other bases besides just Taurus, but the Chip McCormick Power 10 magazines, they have some issues that will take care of themselves within a week. If you just get this magazine right out of the package, shove it in your gun, and just go to the range, it's going to misfire and jam up the first 3 rounds. After that, it'll be reliable. The trick to do with these magazines is actually you load them up full with all 10 rounds, and you just leave them. You leave them for about 4 days, and the spring will actually take a little bit of a set. And then after that, you unload it all the way. You load 5 rounds, fire it. You load 7 rounds, you fire it. 8 rounds, fire it. And then about when you get to the 10th round, it'll start being reliable. I mean, if you think I'm just pulling your leg on this, buy one of these mags, try it out. You actually have to break these things in. It's strange, I know, but to load them up with 10 rounds, again, it won't work. But you have to break them in a certain way, and they are, after that, 100% reliable. This one I actually keep just 9 rounds in. Members, I like it a little better, you know. I don't want to crush that spring too much, because I leave this magazine loaded for months on end, and after you break the magazine in, you don't want to undo it by just leaving the magazine set and it having the wrong kind of set. After that much time, it will just start becoming weak. So to avoid that, I just load it 9 rounds for storage, and it works perfectly.